That's why I rock with him.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
That's why I rock with JV, man.
JV.
Welcome in. We waited for this episode in anticipation of a few big-time free agency moves, and boy, did we get them. Diggs to the Patriots. Russ to the Giants. Aaron Rodgers, his situation is still up in the air. Our pretenders to our contenders this year. We got it all jam-packed in one episode, so without further ado, subscribe, like, comment, notifications, whatever you got to do to stay up to date with us, because we're bringing content all off season long. Let me welcome in a very, very happy New England Patriots fan, Mr. Shawn. You got to be rocking today, dude. You must be feeling incredible.
See, I don't even want to ask, I don't even want to answer how I'm feeling. I want to know how you're feeling, because since 2020, you guys have reigned over the AFC East. And you know what? I tip my hat to you guys. Congratulations. It's awesome. You won a bunch of Super Bowls. Oh, wait, you haven't even made it to there. All good, okay? You had 4 years of dominance, and I am proud of you guys.
More than
I look
4
at
years.
the Buffalo, 4.5.
Arguably, yeah.
Well, see what you consider dominance in Buffalo versus what you consider dominance in Foxborough is different.
Right.
But anyways, I look at the Buffalo Bills as our little brother, and I was happy for you guys. But it's over now. Look at the shirt. AFC Conference champions, right? So we're not even looking at the AFC East anymore. We are heavy favorites. We are coming for it all in the AFC. So anyways, I am ecstatic. Do you want to know why I'm ecstatic? Because we finally got Drake May a weapon. Now, yes, I understand. He's 31 years old. I do understand. Yeah, for sure. I do understand that he is coming off of an ACL tear. What you need to understand, though, is that we have not had an 1,000-yard receiver since 2019. 6 years ago, okay? So this is huge for a receiving group that was ranked 28th in the National Football League, okay? We had a total of 161 receptions, 10 touchdowns, and 1,700 yards for an entire group, for an entire receiving corps.
Jamar Chase outdid that himself.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't even need Stephon Diggs to come in and be Stephon Diggs of old. If he can give us even 900 yards, success. That is success, because that will be 10 times better than anything we've had in the last 5 years. This move, it catapults us. And I am trying to be as unbiased as possible. But this is a move that if you really want to see Drake May grow, this is what you do. You give him a legit wide receiver one. Now, I'm intrigued to see what we do with the draft. I still think we go wide receiver. I was hoping that we would go Travis Hunter, but with the news of Russell Wilson going to New York, it looks like they have their QB for now. So we'll be interested to see if they go receiver with Travis Hunter, or if they do get a young quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. So that'll be interesting. But I am beyond ecstatic. I am happy. The Patriots are back. That's great news for me. Horrible news for you. And I'm excited.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, I said at some point after the season that Josh Allen and the Bills had the biggest window that the franchise could have asked for, especially with how terrible the Dolphins have been, and the Jets are just always trash. We can bank on that. But it was just about time that we had another contender at least come and pressure us a little bit. We've had 13, 14-win seasons just by ease. And I still obviously would take the Bills over the Pats, Deshaun. I mean, I easily all day long. But to say I'm not worried, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned. And the reason why, and it's not even the fact that Diggs is there. I was looking at the Pats early on in December and January as the team that I saw making that leap, making that Commanders type leap this year. And the reason being that they got a defensive head coach who's a former coach of the year who understands the culture in Mike Vrabel. And the Patriots are putting the AFC on notice. The Stephon Diggs move is the best receiver they have had in a very, very long time. Very long time. They made the big Randy Moss splash a very long time ago, but they haven't really been known, to be honest. And I don't know what your thoughts are, but to be a receiver team, like to bring in big time receivers, Edelman was obviously incredible and Gronk, but they were never like a star central receiver team. I thought they were built largely on their defense and their run game. So to bring in Stephon Diggs, I get he's 32 years old. It was a slight overpay, but like we've said, beggars can't be choosers. And the fact that Patriots were ranked 28th is wild. I thought they were bottom of the barrel 32, to be honest with you. So the Patriots with Stephon Diggs have now put the AFC on notice with a top 10 defensive unit. And if they can draft offensive linemen to just help supplement what they already have, Drake May, the sky is the limit for that guy. I mean, heading into his second year, what he did with whatever he had last year was miraculous. It was more incredible than what any other rookie quarterback did because of what was surrounding him. And yes, I'm worried, to say the least. However, I still think Josh Allen has this year to get it done. But moving forward, I would be really, really concerned.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I would go as far as saying is that Stephon Diggs is the best receiver we've had since Randy Moss. Now, obviously, if you want to include Antonio Brown for the one game he played, but like with the exception of that, like Stephon Diggs is the best receiver that's been in Foxborough since 2008, and that's a long time. And I think that kind of just shows how New England is kind of evolving with their approach. Like we're not really just trying to win with just whoever at receiver anymore. Now, like we're actually going to go out there and get big names. And I think that this upcoming draft, I think it'll be weapon focused, especially just because like the last 2-3 years, like we have just been like one of the worst receiving groups, like honestly in NFL history. And so I'm really excited to see what we do, but this is like such a gigantic step in the right direction. And really, it's between the Patriots and the Bills for AFC East because I don't think the Dolphins are serious at all. And the Jets are going to jet. So not too worried about that. So I think it'll be interesting. And now when like the Bills and Patriots play, I think it's going to be a lot more of a even matchup than what it's been.
Yeah, it'll be a level playing field. And the one thing I'll say is the Patriots were always just this one weapon away from actually doing something offensively. And now that they have it and they have everything in order, they took a few years after Bill was gone to revamp. They didn't stay mediocre like the Steelers or the Dolphins. They didn't try to contend when they couldn't. The Patriots rebuilt this roster, and now that they have their foundation, their young rookie quarterback heading into his second year, they have a weapon they can trust that they know they can get production out of now. He is 32. He's coming off the ACL, I think it was, season-ending injury. But again, a lot better than what they've had in previous years. And I do think, honestly, Deshaun, the Pats are set up. They're set up big time moving forward. And like you said, the draft is going to be interesting now because whether the Pats actually pick at the 4th spot or they move up or move down, it'll be interesting to see because, like you said, and this will transition us right over into Russ and the Giants did go after Russell Wilson. And that is pretty much telling me, at least, we're probably not going quarterback if we got Jameis and Russ, unless they go Shedeur, Jameis, and Russ and dress them all, which I don't really expect to happen. For me, at least, Deshaun, Russ to New York was a desperation move for the front office. They are on a flaming hot seat, Brian Dable and Joe Shen, and they need to get wins now. Russell Wilson, they have guaranteed production out of. He's a veteran, knowledge of the game, understands what he's walking into. They know what they're getting out of Russell Wilson. Why would they bet their future career on Shedeur Sanders, who is probably getting overdrafted because of the weak quarterback draft class. Now
Absolutely.
they have Russell Wilson, who, again, he might not be the game changer that he once was, but he's won a Super Bowl, and he has the knowledge and veteran presence he'll bring in there. They have a true number one with Malik Neighbors. Tyrone Tracy was serviceable last year as a rookie running back. The defense is actually pretty solid. So going into the draft, they have to be looking at the weapons or the offensive line, I think. Like, I wouldn't necessarily go quarterback for them because, in my eyes, Russ is on a 1-year, $21 million deal with $10.5 guaranteed. They're looking in the future at a better quarterback draft class where they can actually develop rather than drafting this year, putting their franchise at risk for another 5 miserable seasons. They're gearing up and trying to save their jobs.
Yeah. First, I want to just say, so you didn't pay Saquon because you wanted to pay Daniel Jones, and then you let Daniel Jones go because he was bad. Saquon go and has a historic season, wins a Super Bowl, and then to save face, you then circle back and get Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. I hope, for the sake of Giant fans, that they lose their job, like that entire front office and head coach, because that just makes no sense to me. This seems like a front office that is making moves really with no purpose. But what I will say, for the roster that they have now, I wouldn't be surprised if they have like a relatively successful season. They do have a good defense. You got Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns. Like, you have really good front seven. You have a decent secondary. And yeah, like, you have like a legitimate wide receiver one, a future star if he's not one now. And you also have Wan'Dale Robinson, a very legitimate wide receiver too. And Russell Wilson, even in that 6-game stretch this last year, like, he looked of Russell Wilson of old. So I still do believe that he does have a little bit left in the tank. It's just going to be all dependent on if that New York Lions going to be able to hold him up. But I do think that this is a good move for them to win now, but I still don't think it's a good enough move to make them a legitimate threat in the NFC.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say the Giants are looking at maybe even the playoffs. Like, they might get there, but I don't know. The NFC was tough last year, despite what people have to say. I think this puts them around like the 7 to 8 win game range for me. I think somewhere around there, maybe 6. It really depends how fast Russ can pick things up in that New York system. But that's a good point you brought up. I mean, I was just searching up the contract situation there, and Darius Slayton is making 3 years, $36 million. And Barkley just scored, I think, $13.5 million per year. So it's just kind of interesting the way things played out there. Obviously, that was a massive mistake for New York, especially putting the salt in the wound was the fact he went to Philadelphia and won a Super Bowl with them with an Offensive Player of the Year season. But I agree with you, Deshaun. I think this move for New York made the most logical sense, and it sets them up as a franchise to at least compete and maybe have a brighter future. I didn't love forcing a quarterback draft pick early on and just betting on him even if you didn't like Shadur Sanders. I think for Brian Dable and Joe Shen, this is saving their ass right now. This is, please keep me around. Let me have a salary for this team, and we'll try and build something up. The quarterback draft classes coming up are seemingly a lot better than this year's, and they should be decent. Yep. So if they can kind of get things going with Russ or Jameis Winston, whoever it is, the team actually isn't that bad. They had a big free agency in the secondary, Javon Holland, Paulson Adebo. They're actually set up pretty well. It's just the Giants. That's really the only problem. So I really liked what they did with Russell Wilson. It made a lot of logical sense for me. And now you look at the situation over in Pittsburgh, Deshaun, which we've harped on over and over and over again, and it seems like it's Aaron Rodgers or bust in Pittsburgh. And for me, at least from my perspective, there is no place in the league left for Aaron Rodgers. Even if it's Pittsburgh, they're not good enough to actually compete for a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, at least in my eyes. And there are two reasons a veteran quarterback would stay around, either for mentorship or to win. And Aaron Rodgers has scratched the mentorship. He's obviously not around to be a mentor for the young quarterbacks like a Joe Flacco. So he's here to win. And winning teams right now, they have their winning quarterback. They have their franchise quarterback set up. Other than maybe the Vikings, and they expressed absolutely zero interest in Aaron Rodgers because they want to roll with JJ. So I don't really question Aaron Rodgers as much as his talent. I don't question Aaron Rodgers' talent as much as I do just the character. I think organizations are cautious on bringing someone like Aaron in who wants to run his own ship and bring his own players in, and maybe that might work out, but they don't want a miserable next few years like the Jets will have because of the Aaron Rodgers situation.
Yeah, I think if you bring in a quarterback in the kind of the twilight of their career, you need to have a plan. And the Jets, like they historically do, just made like another move with just no plan in sight. I do like the move to Pittsburgh a little bit more. You do have two like legitimate receivers. You have like a decent running back, and then of course you have that great defense. My only issue is, and I am a player's advocate, I hate when fans say certain players have a bad attitude, locker room issues, whatnot, because at the end of the day, we are fans. We do not know what goes on. But what we see, right, that's all we can go off of. And things are going to be great in Pittsburgh until they're not. And then I'm going to be intrigued to see how it works if they do get Aaron Rodgers, when Aaron Rodgers is upset, DK Metcalf's upset, and George Pickens is upset. You have three uberly talented football players that, from a talent standpoint, should be enough to win a Super Bowl. But they are all mentally so small in the biggest of moments, like with the exception of Aaron Rodgers. But now he is still mentally small and his skill is now depleting. So I think for a fit skill-wise and talent-wise, sure, it's going to be great. I just don't know how their characters are going to all fit in with each other, especially when things aren't going to go well, and like they're not. Because like you're going to bring in a quarterback who has to learn like the system, and then like you're going to bring in a wide receiver who I'm assuming thinks he's going to be like the wide receiver one, and then you're going to have like a wide receiver there who thinks he's the wide receiver one. So there's going to be a lot of things they're going to have to work through, and I'm just intrigued to see if they're going to be able to do that in a efficient manner or if things are going to blow up even before they start.
This is also assuming that Rodgers lands in Pittsburgh, right? Like that hasn't even been sealed as a deal. But I mean, like you just backtrack a little bit. 3,800 yards last year, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions with the Jets. It wasn't the perfect season, but again, this isn't really a lack of talent question for me. I don't think Aaron Rodgers, I don't know about you, but when you compare him like talent-wise to Brady's last years, I don't think like there's a crazy gap. I still think Rodgers can play, but there needs to be the perfect situation for an older quarterback like that, especially someone who has the quote-unquote attitude problems that Rodgers has. And I agree with you, Shawn, like we cannot tell everyone the full story when we're just sitting here and listening to what the media has to tell us. But I will say, if there are countless stories about a player from different sources that are saying the same thing and we visually see it on the field with the reactions and the relationships, obviously there has to be something there. There has to be a reason why championship caliber teams like the Vikings said absolutely not. We're not entertaining Aaron Rodgers. When we have a chance to go ahead and win a Super Bowl, that screams, hey, there's an issue maybe here with Aaron. And maybe Mike Tomlin is the right fit, and he's finally going to be a character guy that holds Aaron in his place. But what if we harped on the play calling in Pittsburgh is also brutal? They're not a very good passing team whatsoever. So bringing in any quarterback doesn't make a lot of sense when you don't have the offensive play calling down, and you notoriously have been a defensive run team, but your defenses fail in the playoffs. Like, we are just circling back to these same points episode after episode because the Steelers, they stay stagnant. Nothing ever changes.
Yeah. And I think that's a thing with aging football players, and I think just athletes in general. When you are a superstar of a team, of a franchise, and you say maybe have an attitude, the teams are fine with that attitude so long as you are out there on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays and producing. The second you have a drop-off in skill and production, they are just not willing to put up with like your attitude anymore.
Right.
So absolutely, Aaron Rodgers is able to still play in the National Football League. It's just now his attitude and his skill are even, and for a team, it's just not worth the hassle. So I agree with you. I think his last stop before he is out of the league is going to be in Pittsburgh, and I think that's going to be a hell of a challenge for Mike Tomlin. But I keep hearing about this Mike Tomlin guy being a Hall of Fame head coach. So if he is that, which I don't think he is, but if he is that, then show it.
Yeah,
make this work.
Yeah, he should be able to do it. Deshaun, the last thing we had lined up were a few teams that were pretenders last year, but we expect to transition into contenders this season. We already kind of highlighted one of yours to start off the episode, but I'll give you the floor for your pretenders to contenders this season.
So my contenders, I think, is the Atlanta Falcons. I really like what they have going on the offensive side of the ball. You got Drake London, Darnell Mooney, for the sake of all future fantasy owners of this player, Kyle Pitts. Hopefully this is the year that he makes a breakthrough. And then you have a younger quarterback in Michael Penix. And then you also have a good defense. You got AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates. You have the pieces. And the main reason that I believe that they're going to go to the playoffs is because their division is treacherous. With the exception of the Bucks, I think it'll be between Atlanta and the Bucks. I like what they have, again, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I think this is the year that Atlanta makes it back into the playoffs. And then, of course, I'm not even gonna say too much, but you know who's going back to the playoffs. We're going back, and we're looking for number 7. Okay, all right. Josh Allen, Ray Allen, Jimmy Fallon, doesn't matter. Patriots in 5. We are going back, and I cannot wait because we are going to send the Bills home. We are going to send you guys home. So I'll give you the floor, but just know we're back.
Just know, if this backfires on you, the clipping of this entire episode is going to be absolutely gold. But I do see what you're saying, for sure, for the Pats, and then for the Falcons. I mean, I don't know if you mentioned Bijan either, but like the whole,
oh my God, yes,
the whole
absolutely,
offense
yes.
is, and we saw the Michael Penix that maybe a lot of people didn't expect, pardon me, to close out last season. There were a lot of close games last year. The Falcons had 1 or 2 go their way. They could have made the playoffs, right? So I think the Panthers will be decent, but not good enough to contend for a playoff spot. And then it's really against them and the Bucks, I think, for the division. My picks, Deshaun, and we've talked a lot about the Chicago Bears. I won't go into too much detail with them, but I thought they did well upgrading the O-line, Ben Johnson in there. And keep in mind, I forgot to mention this, but around 6.5 teams newly go into the playoffs every year. So 6.5 new teams make the playoffs every single year on average. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 7. It really depends. But when you look at it, like right now, you're looking at it and thinking, well, the top 14 teams from last year should be the top 14. Usually that's not the case. And it opens the door for a lot of teams like the Bears. And I think the Bears will take that next step, at least contend. The other one I had in the NFC, Deshaun, I don't know if they'll make it, but I think once again they'll be very, very close, is the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are a very sneaky playoff team to me. I think last year they were oh so close. I think they finished 8-9, and the big hole heading into free agency was the defensive line. and they went out and picked up the big-time addition of Josh Sweat coming off the big Super Bowl performance, and they also picked up Dalvin Tomlinson, who will work on the interior of that defensive line. So they addressed those needs. Kyler Murray, for me, Deshaun, is a little underrated. I think he's very talented, obviously an incredible athlete coming out of college, drafted, I think, 9th to the MLB and 1st overall in the NFL. They held it very close with a lot of playoff contenders last year. Now, they had their fair share of blowout games where they just got wiped, but I think second-year Marvin Harrison Jr., he steps up. They maybe add a few more weapons. The offensive line and James Conner was very, very good last year. They'll be good again. I think in the NFC, maybe the Cardinals can break through. It's not a guarantee. I wouldn't be surprised if they miss it. I'm just throwing it out there that they last year were very close, and I think they'll maintain that distance from the playoffs this year.
All right, so I'm going to save us quick because I know if we don't mention this team and this specific player, we will get annihilated in the comments. So we picked the Patriots, the Falcons, Chicago, and the Cardinals. So there's a team that we're leaving out. Cincinnati.
Yes. Okay, yes.
No,
but
no,
I wouldn't...
no. I completely agree. But I just think if we don't mention them, it'll be hell.
For sure.
I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, though.
Really?
No, I just don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I just don't think that you can rely on 3 players and then a makeshift defense, especially in that division. Because, yes, as much as we give the Steelers and Tomlin heck, like, they win games, right? And that's going to make it harder for Cincinnati to make the playoffs because, like, the Ravens are going to be in the playoffs. It's going to be hard in that division to win games. And then just the rest of the AFC in general. I just don't like their chances from an overall team standpoint. They do have, like, the names. They do have the firepower offensively, but we see what offensive firepower does. Eventually, it falls apart. Eventually, you need your defense to get a stop, and that defense is just not made to do that. Who knows? Maybe they are able to re-sign some guys. Maybe they're able to go and draft some studs, maybe make a trade. But with how the Cincinnati Bengals are currently structured, I have them missing the playoffs for a second year in a row. And then I think things get a little tricky with Joe Burrow and his relationship with that front office.
Yeah, we can wrap things up. And the reason I didn't mention the Bengals, obviously, is because in my eyes, they were contenders last year, and they just kind of they were unlucky when you get to the end of the season. They started off the year slow as per usual and weren't able to pick things up with the injuries to D. Higgins, whatever. This is kind of interesting when you look at the AFC playoff picture because for me, the teams that I'd imagine making next year, you got Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, and whoever wins, probably the Texans in that division. I'll give it to them. But those are the division winners, right? And then here's the thing. It opens the door for 3 wild card teams. And this year, I believe it was Los Angeles, Denver, and Pittsburgh. Now, all 3 of those teams, for me, might not make it next year. I think the Broncos are first in line, but the Steelers and the Chargers, there's by no means a guarantee for them. Like, those teams could very well lose a few key games, and it's a wrap for them. So that's why I believe maybe the Bengals could squeak into a 6th or 7th seed. I do think the Ravens will win the division. I just find it hard to believe, Deshaun, that with the big contracts they've brought in with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, that they will allow themselves to miss the playoffs again. I refuse to believe it. With a generational talent, at least in my eyes, at the quarterback position in Joe Burrow, I find it so difficult to imagine a back-to-back season where the Bengals upset again. Now, it could happen. It could. And if it doesn't, then I think we're getting into very dangerous territory, almost into, like, are we going to ship off T. Higgins at that point because we need help? outside of the 2 receivers and 1 quarterback that we have taking up around 50% of the cap.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
I mean, it's tough. It's tough. The Bengals are in a unique situation because they have so much star power with those 3. But if one of them gets injured, or if something goes wrong, if they start off the season 0-3 or 0-2 again, and they have to climb themselves back in to their year, I don't know.
It's gonna be tough.
It's gonna be tough, especially with teams like Los Angeles and the Broncos continuing to barrel along and just building that strong foundation that they have. So I appreciate that you at least mentioned it. I kind of just had it as a given that they would like, at least contend. But outside of that, I thought our picks are pretty solid, and that kind of wraps things up for us.
Absolutely.
As far as this episode, it's a little bit of a dry period heading up into the draft, but I'm sure we'll have some content coming out for that. Again, I appreciate you guys for rocking with us. Subscribe, like, comment, notifications, whatever you got to do. Deshaun, bro, I appreciate you hopping on again.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you.